Hey guitar champion, what's going on? Justin Hombach here, back from my practice cave, and welcome to today's lesson about the 3 licks that you've heard like a little tease in the beginning. Those 3 licks are from 3 Chris Broderick solo of his Megadeth era. I covered the full solos on my last video, so go ahead and check out this video first if you want to see the full video. But in today's video I'm going to teach you 3 of those licks from his solos. Those licks are pretty awesome to improve your sweep technique, your picking technique, string skipping, tapping technique and whatnot. So go ahead and check them out. First, always I'm going to play those licks slow. And if you want the free tabs of this lick, then check out the description box. There I have a download link for you prepared where you can download those tabs. I wish you a lot of fun with those licks. Try them out, experiment with those patterns and those sequences, try to make it into your own playing or try to use it to improve your technique. So without further ado, let's start with lick number 1. If you like the video, feel free to subscribe, to like, to comment, to share and whatnot. But first of all, let's check out the licks and the lesson to those licks. Cheers! Okay, the first lick slow goes like this. This lick is a really cool arpeggio lick from the Public Enemy No. 1 solo section, and here we are outlining first an A minor chord. This A minor chord looks like this. We are starting on the 5th, the 14th fret on the D string, the E, and going to the root, the 14th fret on the G string. Now this is a really tricky jump. We have the same fret, but normally I would recommend to do the roll technique, this one. But especially with the arpeggios that comes after this one and in this higher tempo, for me it felt really inefficient to play it with the roll technique in this kind of way. The picking is not a sweep picking lick like we are used to play with the roll technique, and we have to do a pull off right afterwards. So for me it felt a bit more natural to play it with 2 fingers. And as far as I've seen it right from some live videos while Megadeth was playing this song, I think Chris is also using this kind of technique. Not the roll technique, but the 2-finger technique. But you really have to be aware of this, that you have to share 1 fret and a higher fret. I mean, if it would be played a little bit lower, maybe it would be a little bit easier because we have more space to put 2 fingers in 1 fret. But here on the 14th fret, it's not that much space, so it can be a bit tricky. Okay, after we are going to the root, we are playing the 3rd on the 17th fret on the G string and pulling back to the root. Then we are going back to the 3rd, but this time with a pick stroke, and jumping to the 5th, an octave higher, on the 12th fret on the E string, making a string skip. When we have reached the 12th fret on the E string, we are going right back to the 17th fret on the G string and pulling from the 3rd to the root. Now we are jumping to the octave of the root, where we're playing the next section, which goes like this. First we are pulling from the root to the 5th, on the E string, 17th fret to 12th fret, going to the 3rd, which again lies on the 17th fret of the G string, jumping back to the 12th fret on the E string, pulling back from the 3rd to the root, playing the 5th on the D string, again with 2 fingers and 1 fret, and resolving to the root. Now we are again playing the 3rd and pulling back to the root, and this was our first bar. So the next two bars are basically the same. The only difference here is that we are going to raise the fifths one fret, one half note higher. So we are now getting the minor sixth instead of the fifths. So instead of this arpeggio, we are now raising the fifths, which was the 14th fret on the D string and the 12th fret on the E string, to the 15th fret on the D string and the 13th fret on the E string. The rest stays the same. This is a bit easier to play, it's a bit more common, and it's a bit easier because we don't have to share two fingers in one fret. And the next bar goes like this, again raising now the minor sixth to the major sixth. Again, the rest stays the same. Well, you might recognize this movement from the so-called James Bond theme. Which is basically this kind of cliché and movement where we're going to raise up the fifths, making it from the natural fifths to the minor sixths, and again from the minor sixths to the major sixths and back again. But we're not going back again, we are going to a different chord now. And the last section of this lick is an E minor chord, and it looks like this. So we're starting on the third of the E minor chord, the G, which lies on the 17th fret of the D string, going to the 5th, the 16th fret on the G string, hammering and pulling to the 21st fret on the G string, the root, going back to the 5th, picking the root, making the string skip from the root to the 3rd, an octave higher on the 15th fret on the G string, on the E string. Now we are not going back again like we have done in the other arpeggio licks before. We are staying on the E string, hammering and pulling to the 19th fret, and making this kind of arpeggio lick. This is a really cool, interesting arpeggio lick. I've done a bigger video about this kind of arpeggios. You can click in the info card right here, tuck, and there you can see the big lesson I've done to this kind of arpeggio triplet lick. Okay, but in short, we are tapping the root on the 24th fret on the E string, pulling from the 5th, the 19th fret on the E string, to the 15th fret on the E string, tapping then the 19th fret on the E string, the 5th, and pulling with our tapped finger, pulling with our tapped finger the 15th fret on the E string, hammering from nowhere the 17th fret on the B string, the root, tapping on the, the 20th fret on the B string, the 3rd, pulling it again, hammering from nowhere on the 16th fret on the G string, again our 5th, and resolving into the A, the 17th fret on the E string. And the second lick goes like this, and slow. Here on this crazy advanced tapping lick from the This Is How the Story Ends song, we are outlining 4 chords. The first chord is E minor, then we're playing C major, then we're playing F sharp major, going to B major. Okay, the E minor we're outlining with this kind of tapping idea. First we're starting with this kind of tapping on the E string, 19th fret to the 17th fret, pulling to the 12th fret, so we have 5th, 3rd, root, and tapping the octave, the 5th an octave below. Then we are doing a hammer-on from nowhere, hammering the third, pulling to the root, and then tapping again the octave of the fifth and pulling it to the third, an octave lower. So far we have. Okay, then we are playing again the root, but we are not jumping to the 12th fret on the E string. We're playing the root with our ring finger on the 15th fret of the B string. So we're doing this kind of tapping. Middle finger to the ring finger. So we're going to the root, tapping then the fifths, pulling to the third. Here we are making a position shift. We are now playing the third with our pinky, not with our index anymore. And pulling to the root again, this time on the 9th fret on the G string. After that we are tapping again the fifths, pulling to the third, pulling to the root, tapping again the fifths and sliding to the C on the 17th fret of the G string, which leads us to the next chord, the C major chord. So basically we are tapping the C major arpeggio the same way like we have tapped the E minor arpeggio, but this time we are not starting on the fifths of the individual arpeggio, we are starting on the root. And the root is, as I've said, on the 17th fret on the G string, the C, and here we can rest with our fingers from the E minor shape, because in the E minor we have the G and the E, and as well in the C major we have the G and the E. So basically the only note that has to be changed is the B, which leads to the C. We are starting on the root, pulling to the fifths, pulling to the third, and going to the root an octave below, this time on the 15th fret of the A string. Now we're doing again the hammer on from nowhere on the fifths, pulling to the third, tapping the root again on the 15th fret on the E string, and playing the fifths an octave below, this time on the 10th fret on the A string. So now for the next position we have to make a little stretch, because the 15th fret on the A string, the root, is not anymore played with our tap finger, but this time with our pinky, because our tap finger has to be going to the 19th fret on the A string. So we can get this arpeggio so far. So after we have tapped the 19th fret on the A string, we are pulling it to the 15th fret on the A string and pulling to the 10th fret on the A string, hammering back again to the 15th fret on the A string. Now we have to make a huge jump and a huge hammer on from nowhere, from the 15th fret on the A string with our pinky to our index, hammering from nowhere into the 9th fret on the G string. After we have made the hammer on from nowhere, we are hammering to the 11th fret on the G string, and we are now in the next arpeggio, the F sharp major arpeggio. The F sharp major arpeggio in slow looks like this. So we have a lot of hammer-ons from nowhere in this arpeggio, in this F sharp major arpeggio, and we are starting on the third, tapping it on the 15th fret of the G string, then pulling to the 11th fret of the G string and hammering to the 9th fret of the G string, which is in this case the 7th. So we can get a F sharp dominant 7th chord. Okay. Then we are tapping the 5th on the 16th fret on the A string, going to the 3rd, which is on the 13th fret on the A string, and pulling to the root again. Then we are hammering back again to the 3rd and tapping again the 5th, hammering from nowhere to the 7th, playing an ascending version of the line on the G string, hammering from nowhere to the 19th fret on the E string, which is in this case the 5th of the F sharp dominant 7 major dominant 7 chord, hammering the 12th fret on the E string, which is again the 7th, and going to the 14th fret on the E string, which is the root. Okay, and after this F sharp dominant 7 arpeggio, we are going to the B major arpeggio, and we are outlining this one with this tapping. First we are starting again on the 14th fret on the E string, which is this time the 5th of the B major arpeggio, tapping to the 3rd, pulling to the root, playing again a 7th, so we get the B major dominant 7 sound. The 7th is on the 10th fret on the B string, so we have to make another hammer-on from nowhere. And another hammer-on from nowhere to the 7th fret on the B string, on the A string. On the E string, sorry. Hammering to the 3rd, then we make the next 3 notes as triplets. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And going to the next inversion, where we're starting on the 7th, and this time on the 17th fret on the E string, playing the 5th, pulling to the 3rd, again hammer on from nowhere to the root, 12th fret on the B string, hammer on from nowhere to the 3rd, the 5th, and again the triplet. So we can get and resolving it. The last lick of this lesson in slow goes like this. The final lick of the Megadeth epic 44 minutes is a real technical blast. It's a great combination between sweep picking and alternate picking. Basic idea of this section is we are first sweeping an arpeggio and then playing in 3-note per string scale. So it's sweep arpeggio, 3-note per string scale, sweep arpeggio, 3-note per string scale, vis-a-vis. But the interesting idea of this section is the rhythmical idea that we have, and it creates a really great cascading flow. First, we are starting with an E minor arpeggio, and we are sweeping it. It's this kind of arpeggio. 3-string arpeggio, starting on the 12th fret, pulling to the 7th fret on the E string, playing the 8th fret on the B string, sweeping 9, 8, 7 on B, G, and E, and pulling again the 12th fret to the 7th fret. Then we are playing the E minor scale in triplets in 3-note per strings from the E string to the D string. So we have 12, 10, 8, 12, 10, 8, 11, 9, 7, 10, 9, 7. Then we are again sweeping the E minor arpeggio, but this time not in 60 notes, we are sweeping it in triplets. Then sliding to the next interval of the E minor accord, which is the 15th fret on the E string, the 3rd, and here we are starting our scale run. Again, 3-note per string scale, but this time from the E string to the A string. So we have 15, 14, 12, 15, 13, 12, 14, 12, 11, 14, 12, 10, 14, 12, 10. Then we are jumping to A minor and we are sweeping this form, this inversion of A minor, 12, 8 on the E string, 10 on the B string, and 9 on the G string. We are again playing it first in 60 notes. And then we are playing the same scale like in the E minor section. 12, 10, 8, 12, 10, 8, 11, 7, 9, 7, 10, 9, 7 from the E to the D string in triplets. Then again we are playing the arpeggio, but again in 60-note triplets. Jumping to the next interval of the A minor chord, which is in this case the 17th fret on the E string, the A, and we're playing here now the scale, the 3-note per string scale of E minor. From the E string to the A string. So we have 17, 15, 14, 17, 15, 13, 16, 14, 12, 16, 14, 12, 15, 14, 12. Then we are jumping to B minor. Same shape like the A minor, just transform it 2 frets higher. Playing this time this scale section. 14, 12, 10, 13, 12, 10, 12, 11, 9 and 12, 10, 9. Playing again the Spree arpeggio, again not in 16 notes the second times, but in 16 note triplets. And jumping to the next interval of the B minor arpeggio, which is the B on the 19th fret on the E string, and playing here the E minor 3-note per string scale, which is 19, 17, 15, 19, 17, 15, 17, 16, 14, 17, 16, 14, and on the A string we have 17, 15, 14. Now we are going back again to A minor, but not this inversion. We are playing the next inversion, where we are starting on the 17th fret on the E string, pulling to the 12th fret, 13th fret on the B string, 14th fret on the G string. Playing this scale, an E minor scale in triplets, starting on the 15th fret, 15, 14, 12, 15, 13, 12, 14, 12, 11, 14, 12, 10. We know this kind of shape from our E minor section. But this time we're playing it not to the A string, only to the D string. And then we are playing again B, but this time major, not minor arpeggio. And we are playing it over 5 strings, not over 3 strings. So we have in triplets. And we're starting on the 19th fret, pulling to the 14th fret, playing 16, 16, 16, 18 on the A string, pulling to the 14th fret on the A string, hammering back again to the 18th fret on the A string, playing again 16, 16, 16, and 14 on the E string, and playing the E harmonic minor scale, starting on the 17th fret, going to the D, going to the E, the root note on the D string. We are playing 17, 15, 14, 17, 16, 13, 16, 14, 12, 16, 14, 13, and resolving into the E, 14th fret on the E string, on the D string, sorry.